Now going over to question number 20, before we get into it, let's review exponential equations. So our main exponential equation, a times b to the x, says that a is the starting amount, b is the way it changes, and x is the number of times that all happens. Now the two main variations would be if instead of x you had x over 3 for the exponent, that means this thing is going to change once every time x goes up by 3. So for instance, if we're dealing with time, it would change every 3 months. And having a 3x here, as an example, would mean that it's changing 3 times every time x goes up by 1. So for instance, if this is a financial account, I'd be getting my money, my sort of growth of my money, 3 times every 1, let's say, month. So coming back over here now, this notation is kind of a variation of saying f of x is 1 times 1.84 to the x over 4. So according to what we just showed you, this thing would be starting at 1. It would be going up 84% because, by the way, if we start at 100% and then go up or down by 84, it's going to take it up to 184 or down to 16, and these are percents. And in decimal form, you'd have 0.16 here or 1.84 here. So that 1.84 means that our number is going up 84%. So it's starting at 1, it's going up 84%, and that's going to happen every time x goes up by 4. So if we're dealing with months, that would be every 4 months. So the question is saying, okay, we have this thing that's going up 84% every time x goes up by 4. And then we're now being asked, how does that fit into this equation? And that is like your standard exponential equation. Y equals a times b to the x. Now this part in here, the 1 plus p over 100, that's just a fancy way of doing what we were doing here. So 100 plus 84% would be 184%, which is 1.84. So just imagine here that p were 84 over 100. This would all be 1.84. So now we're basically just simply being asked here, by what percent is this thing going up in the situation of a function that x is just increasing by 1? So just to review, we've got a function where we're saying this thing is going up by 84% every time x goes up by 4. And then we're being asked, well, by what percent is this going up every time x goes up by 1? And it's a really sort of tough theoretical question here. But the way to solve it is really easy because all we need to do is just say, okay, well, what if x equals 1? What would happen here? So f of 1 is 1 plus p over 100 to the 1. And what about in the other equation? F of 1 is 1 times 1.84 to the 1 over 4 power. Now, on your graphing calculator, we recommend the TI-84 or Desmos. Actually, really, we recommend both. But for certain things, one is better and the other is better for other things. But here, I would go right into the TI-84 and go ahead and say 1.84 to the 1/4 power. And that's going to come out to 1.16 and some further decimals. So in other words, this thing, even though it started at 1, it's now 1.16. And so what is our percent change there? Now, the reason we're looking for percent change is that the final question was saying, well, what is the value of p? P is the p over 100. That's a way to write a percent. So really what they're asking is, by what percent is this thing changing in the new equation? And the formula for percent change is your change over the original amount. Super important formula if you're ever asked by what percent did something change. So for us, this thing changed by 0.16 because it went from 1 to 1.16, and it was originally 1. So the percent change there is 16 over 100, which is 16%, And that's our answer for number 20.